Three, two, one. Okay, no, we're live. Hi, everyone. Thanks for
Hi.
joining us today. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that we believe is very important in our journey to being fully human, in the
Mm,
sense that, like, no matter what type of a relationship you're in, whether it's a marriage, a relationship with a friend, relationship with your family members, saying sorry and forgiving each other is very, very important because you can't just cut off relationships with anyone you have a disagreement with, right? You can't just say, okay, we had argument and that's it. There's no such thing, like you really have
mm,
to find middle ground, really have to say sorry because we all make mistakes, and I feel like that's something that's not really touched on a lot, especially in our society, especially in the Asian society, I don't think
mm,
sorry is a very regular, frequent word that is used. We
mm,
always want to be right. We always want
mm,
to have our say. And I think being able to say sorry is about putting down your pride and really realizing that, hey, I did make a mistake and it's okay to make a mistake, but I also have to apologize to the other person and think about how we're going to move forward from there. So yeah, I guess that's the topic that we're chatting about today. We'll be very honest with you. This is very impromptu because usually we prepare, but today we were just like, okay, let's just go to the topic and we'll have a conversation about this. So thank you for joining us. If at any point in time you want to share your experiences, just leave a comment below and we can also have a conversation about that. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So I guess like for both of us, when we came up with this topic, it was also because recently I think we hi Donna. Yeah, she's just tuned in. We
We
always
always
want
want
to
faith in
say
Asia. Yeah, we cannot
yeah,
be
it's so
wrong.
true. It's so
Yeah.
true. Yeah. And I think even not just in Asia, let's just also talk about like between couples, like in a relationship, right? Or I mean, this also applies to like parent and child and all of that as well, right? Or friends. And I think for me, one of the most recent examples, right, that I'm thinking of in terms of like apologies and forgiveness, is actually, I think last week, yeah, so Jeremy's my husband. So we had a disagreement, and actually, right now, I cannot remember what we were disagreeing about, but I can remember what happened after. So, usually, what happens, right, is that, what usually happens is I get upset with something that he does or he says, right? And then after that, like when he sees that I'm like having a upset reaction or like I'm not talking to him, he will try like his best to kind of like bridge the gap or make sure that I'm okay, because I think what he cannot take, right, is my like cold shoulder or like me not talking to him. So he rather like try and like get over it. So what he thinks is that if I say sorry first, then we can talk about it, and then we can like see, what's your point of view and what's my point of view.
Mm.
But actually, so he tries to do that many, many times, and every time he does that, right, it kind of like backfires in his face, like because like I just don't want to accept the apology so quickly, and the reason why is because I'm actually like when the disagreement just happens, right, I'm still in that mode of like being upset or dwelling on like the thought of what he did or whatever. But for him it's like, okay, if we don't get the emotional part solved in a sense, then we cannot have a neutral conversation to talk about what happened. So that's his point
Mm.
of view of saying sorry first. But for
Mm.
me, I would always say, like, what's the point of saying sorry? You don't even know why you're saying sorry, and like that will get him so upset and it will hurt him a lot because he says like, you don't appreciate my apology. Every time I try to, make good and say sorry first, right, what I'm trying
Mm.
to do is to tell you that I know I did something wrong, even though I don't know what, but I want to tell you that like I
Mm.
want to make it up to you. So actually
Mm.
this was the only time, right, that I actually heard him explain that clearly about why he said sorry first.
Wow.
So like when I heard that, I was like, oh, I think like we are just not seeing things the same way, because
Mm.
and then when I say things like, what's the point of saying sorry? He feels rejected immediately because whatever he tried to muster up his courage to do or, put down his pride to do is like I just like threw it in his face, But
Mm.
for me it's more like, actually if you don't know why you're saying sorry, like actually you don't have to waste it because it's not genuine, Yeah. So he told me the sorry is genuine. It's just that maybe he needs help, right? To come to the part where he can explain or understand why he was wrong. Yeah. So I
Actually,
was
two
like,
questions come to mind.
whoa,
It's like,
yeah.
who's the apology for? Is it for you or is it for him? You know, like when you apologize to someone, is it for yourself or is it for the other person? And the second thing is,
Yeah.
now I can see where he's coming from. That
Yeah.
if I were him, I would say, I'm sorry for hurting you, although I'm not sure why.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe
Yeah.
he did mean it, but it's just that
Yeah.
he can't come to the understanding himself, like by
Yeah.
himself, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that like at the end of the day, right, it's not that I don't appreciate his apology. And also at the end of the day, it's not that he doesn't want to know what he did wrong. It's just that we are communicating with like a lot of missing pieces, you know, and
Mm,
like I think like what I needed to do, right, sometimes is also like when he says sorry, right, is to not like at that moment say, yeah, do you know what you did? It's more like, okay, like I know that, you know, you are for this relationship, you want to reconcile. So like I think like I have to make an intentional step to say like, okay, I appreciate your sorry. Can we now talk about what happened? But I don't
mm,
think like, you know, at that point we are so composed to like break it down into steps like that. It's more like, excuse me, you don't even know why you said, you know, you don't even know why you hurt me, and then you want to say sorry so quickly, you want to get it over and done with, is it? You know, that kind of thing.
mm.
Yeah, because I always had that mentality that like you just want things to pass, right? You don't want to feel the discomfort of me being upset. But like I realized that that was also my wrong way of viewing things, and how come I can think of my husband in that way lah? Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I also apologize for thinking wrongly of his intention of apologizing. Is it confusing?
Mm, no, no, no.
Yeah,
It's not. I think the intention is very important.
yeah,
And I think it takes two people for an apology to work. Because what you're saying is that, you know, although he had the intention to want to smooth things over and say sorry, I also get where you're coming from. Like in a heated argument, sometimes when someone says sorry to you, you're just like, you really hurt me. Sorry, no cure. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So like, the sorry is like, I'm sending you a letter, but if you don't accept my letter, there's just no way we're gonna reach a compromise lah. So
mm,
I'm still pondering on the question of, if you do say sorry, who is the sorry for? You know, I think it's for both parties, right? It's for both parties to bridge the gap. So there has to be a giver and a receiver in that sense.
yeah,
Um, yeah. And then after he said sorry, then did you guys have a conversation about it, or like?
yeah. So we did, and then like after I realized that actually for him, right? So I think what I was baffled with is like, you mean you won't go through everything, analyze the whole situation before like you know tell yourself like, okay, now I'm ready to say sorry, you know? So for
Mm,
me, it's like, how come you can don't go through the whole thing and don't analyze everything and yet you are ready to say sorry, you know? And then he actually told me that like, it's because like, I value you like more than that lah. So
mm,
like, I'm sorry that I did you wrong. I don't know why it is. I need help with it. But like I still want to say sorry because like I just know that I upset you. So it's not so much
mm,
of like I need to know exactly what I did that, you know, upset you. That one can come in explanation. But what he's saying is that I'm already prepared, right, to um say sorry to you first. Lah. Does that make sense?
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because,
So
mm, go ahead.
sorry. Go ahead. No, I don't have anything to say.
Oh no, I was just thinking about a situation whereby, I don't know if you've been in this situation, right? But have you been in a situation where someone else hurt you, but because that person doesn't habitually say sorry, you end up being the one to bridge
Mm,
the gap and to say sorry? I don't know whether it's happened to you, but it's happened to me.
mm,
And I'm just thinking about all the different situations where a sorry can come out, and that sorry can mean very, very different things.
mm.
You know what I mean?
Do
Because
you
it's
have
not
any like
necessarily
yeah
um I
examples?
argued I argued with someone that I really loved a lot, and that person
Mm,
hurt me in terms of like her words and the stuff she said, and she blew her top lah. And the thing is that this person doesn't regularly apologize,
mm,
And it's like, if the person doesn't apologize and the person gives you a cold shoulder, then if you as the other person continue to act the same way, there's no way you can ever bridge the gap. Do you know what I mean? So then
Yeah.
what happens is that, on several occasions I have to be like, hey, I'm sorry that we had argument. Then just try to get back to normal lah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking about like the different variations of a sorry. Because I think like Jeremy's sorry is that I'm sorry I hurt you. I want to try to bridge the gap. But there's also like, I'm sorry I did something wrong. You know what I mean? Or like there's also like, I'm sorry that this happened. So I'm just sorry, I don't know where this is going, but this is just like what is coming to me right now lah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess like on your question also of like who is the sorry for, right? I think I can't really answer that question directly, right? But what I'm thinking is that like for us, when we feel like we've done something wrong, and when we say sorry, so sometimes when Jeremy says sorry, like I feel like, I will tell him like, do you like you just want me to accept the sorry, is it? Like can you give me some space to kind of like let the emotions ride out, or like even give me the space to explain to you why I was hurt in the first place, right? So like I think sometimes like also for us, like you say, like is the sorry for yourself so that you can feel better, because like if I say sorry, the person must accept it, then that one is for yourself, right? Because then it's like a selfish way of like saying sorry, because you just want the discomfort and the conflict to go away, right? Versus like if the sorry is for not the person but for the relationship, for the rebuilding of the relationship, then you might say like, I'm sorry, like actually I don't know what I did wrong, but like I'm sorry that I hurt you and let's discuss why. Yeah. But I think so often it's we don't get into that, and I think it takes a lot of intention to slow down and to do that. And I think for me and Jeremy, like even in one example of disagreement, right, I could like first be selfish and then realize like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, and then I like rewind and then do it again. So it may take like a few hours or whatsoever. Yeah. But I think that's a different topic than forgiveness. Actually, it's linked, but I think it's very different.
Yeah, it's very different. I'm just gonna Donna left a comment. So she said, back to Kate's topic, like different variations on sorry. What are your thoughts on saying I'm sorry you felt that way? Have you guys said this or received this before? Yes. Okay, let me just jump back to what Jill said. I feel that what Jeremy was trying to do is that his sorry, right, is a bridge to bridge the gap. Because when two people are angry with each other, right, it's very awkward. I'm just thinking out loud, right? It's very, very awkward. It's like you're upset and I'm upset, and we just had this huge blowout. What's the first thing you should even say to each other? You know what I mean? So maybe his sorry was, okay, I'm sorry is like putting down a drawbridge.
Yeah.
The conversation to be like, hey, let's have a conversation about this right now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then going to what Donna is saying, right? I think the different variations of sorry, right, is always about intention. But I would always hope that the sorry is a drawbridge to sort of bridge the gap. But the I'm sorry you felt that way has come across to me at times as gaslighting, in the sense that like, I hurt you, I'm sorry you felt that way.
That's your problem.
I feel like it's a but. I feel like there's a but after that. I'm sure we have faced that before. This is a sorry that would agitate me further. But I don't know, Donna. I don't know whether that. Yes, Donna says yes. So yeah, that you should not have. There should never be a but after the sorry. If you are truly sorry, you want to bridge the gap, you cannot say but. It's not going to end well. It's like, I'm sorry, but you made a mistake. It's like, then the story doesn't mean anything, right? Because if you're really truly there to bridge the gap, it's, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, I'm sorry, you were hurt. Let's try to figure this out, tell me how you feel, tell me what went wrong, what can we do better in the future? You know what I mean? Because the story is meaningless if it's just, sorry, that's it. like sorry and then get over it. You can't, it's not supposed to work that way lah.
Yeah. So this reminds me of something that, like, a couple of us, right, we learned in marriage prep course with Claire and Boaz, right? So it's called the speaker listener technique. Yeah. And like, I think that though we don't practice it very often, like in every disagreement, remember the speaker listener technique.
It's not natural. It's not natural.
But I think it has helped us, quite a few times, sometimes mentally also, to give the turn to someone. So how it works, right, is that when you and another person, it could be anyone, it doesn't even have to be someone like your boyfriend or girlfriend or married spouse, it can be anyone that you're having a disagreement with. So that, like, in the example that I mentioned earlier, there's always two sides to the story all the time. That's why we have arguments, right? So with speaker and listener technique, right, literally, you have like a physical card or an object, right, that sets the rules lah. Okay, and then the rules of this is that when you have an argument, you kind of like both need to realize, okay, we are actually engaged in an argument, right? So we need to take turns to tell each other our point of view. And too often, right, when we are in an argument, too many of us are actually very hyper emotional, and when we hear something the other party says, right, we react immediately, like what, how can you even think of me that way, right? And then you kind of hijack the person's turn. So nobody ever gets to explain their point of view and feel heard. So the speaker listener technique is when, like, you respect each other enough, right, to give each other turns. And then the first person will say, like, I was hurt because I felt hurt because this. And then you always give room for the other person to actually reply you and to paraphrase. Yeah. So, what I hear you saying is that you are hurt because I did this, and then you didn't feel comfortable, blah blah blah, right? Then the
Is
other
that
person
right?
can say,
Then you ask, is that right?
yeah. And then the other person can say, like, yeah, oh my gosh, I feel so hurt. And then now, like, when everyone is on the same page, then you can have the apology, you see. Then you are ready to, like, say, I'm sorry. The other person is also ready to say, like, yeah, I accept it, I forgive you. And then you can close the case. But so often we don't give each other the space. So we never have closed cases, and then it adds to, like, emotional baggage, over the years and all that, whether it's with friendships and in relationships. Yeah. So I think, like, it's really great because, like, sometimes, like, you won't remember the rules and all that, but, like, there was once where Jeremy and I were having a big fight, and then it went on for hours, and we could not reconcile it because you sometimes, you keep going in circles because you're not being heard, right? So the person keeps saying the same thing in a different phrasing way, and then you keep trying to get hurt. So the other person try to get hurt, you try to get hurt. It goes in a circle.
Because we all want to be heard.
Yeah. And then you don't want to back down until like the person has your point, right? By then too much damage is done, you're both tired, you can't sleep, all that kind of stuff. There was once, like, it happened, and then, like, we had a bottle in front of us, and I said, like, you know what, let's just use this bottle. When you hold the bottle, I'm going to be quiet, you tell me your point. And when he tells me his point, sometimes it may not be the full truth. This is his point of the story, right? And I need to, like, bite my tongue and just, like, let him finish. And the bottle is a reminder that, like, okay, I don't have the bottle, it's not my turn yet, I need to listen. So, and then when he does that, then even though I feel like, oh my gosh, what you just said is wrong, I just needed to, like, hold that thought. And then when it's my turn, I have to paraphrase what he says. And then sometimes I really feel like I cannot do it, because when I paraphrase, it's like, I feel like I'm agreeing with his train of thought. But actually you have the space, right? And the chance to clarify after that.
But can I just say that the paraphrasing, right? Because I've been in this situation before, the paraphrasing has shown me, right, that we communicate so differently that actually it's very easy to miss out words that the other person says. It's very easy to misinterpret what the other person says. So when you're in an argument and it's like quick fire, right? You only hear particular words, and then so your reality of the truth and the other person's reality of the truth is completely different. Which is why I like the speaker listener technique, because it forces you to slow down very unnaturally. Because as you're talking, I have to listen to you and I have to think about, oh my gosh, what is she saying? So that I can
Yeah.
paraphrase it. If you
Yeah.
paraphrase it wrong, it means you weren't listening to it.
Yes.
So that's
Yeah.
why I love it so much, but it just doesn't come naturally to us.
Yeah. So like I think sometimes one thing that always comes up is that when I am addressing one particular situational issue, right, to Jeremy, and I say like, oh, like actually I was upset that you didn't do that when you promised me that you would, then what he would actually hear me saying, right, is that I'm a disappointment to you, I'm a failure. Then
No,
to me it's like, huh,
that's not what you
no
said. Yeah.
like that's not what I said. Actually, I just said that like, oh, you promised me that, but then it didn't happen. So like, I'm a bit disappointed. But you're not a disappointment to me. Neither are you a failure. But sometimes, like in that whole, I don't know, missing link and all, right? Like he immediately thinks that he is a disappointment, and then the
Wow.
weight of like the hurt, right, is like times 100 or something, because I was just talking about situation, but to him it's like I let my wife down. So it's
Yeah.
like totally like different, and then his reaction would be, multiplied because he felt
Yes.
like he was a failure. Then I'd be like, it's such a small thing, why are you reacting like that? But it's because of like what I say and what he translated it as is so different. And I think that's where it's like also very important that like, we take our thoughts captive. Not everything in our head, right, is actually the truth, and we need to
Yes.
trust each other, bring it out, have a talk, and need to be prepared, right, that you could be wrong about what the other person said as well. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree. Actually, I'm just wary of time because actually I really wanted to talk about forgiveness because I feel like there's a bigger topic, and I feel that
Mm,
that is even harder because
mm,
just because a sorry is sent across doesn't mean that forgiveness and healing has happened. Do you know what I mean?
yes.
Yeah, because I think the sorry is only like the first step
Mm,
in rebuilding it. Like if it's a small
mm,
matter, you say sorry, it might be easier to get over it. But if it's like a bigger hurt, a bigger betrayal, the sorry is just the first step. It's the forgiveness and moving forward that is so much harder lah.
mm,
And I think it was last week, at the end of last week, when I was going for a walk. It was
mm,
either Pastor Robert Morris or Chris
mm,
Vallotton who I was listening to, and I really can't remember. But it was one of their sermons, and something that really struck me, right, was that he said, how do you know whether you've forgiven a person? You have
mm,
forgiven a person when you stop thinking about that person, even though the event has already happened. So, to
mm,
give you an example, I recently was out somewhere, and then like I can't remember. I think I wanted to take a photo or something, and
mm,
I think because of all the restrictions with circuit breaker and everything, right? You're not supposed to take a
mm.
photo. I got yelled at by a security guard who said like, "Hey, you're not allowed to take a photo." And he yelled at me, and I was just like, "Why did he just yell at me?" Like I didn't know I was breaking a rule. I didn't know I was doing something wrong. And he said, "You shouldn't be taking a photo. Just take a photo." Then I was like, "Okay, I'm deleting the photo now." And then I put my phone away. And then after that, he just kept staring at me and like angrily staring at me. And I was like, how should I respond to him? Then even after I went home, I was like, yeah, I should have just said God bless you, right? Then like he'll be like, wow, I scold this girl and she say God bless you. Then I was like, okay lah, like the fact that I'm thinking about it, right? I was just trying to be like the better human being, It was like a competition. I was like, that's how I remember either like Robert Morris or Chris Vallotton said that. I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what they mean, right? I felt like I thought I had forgiven that guy, but even after when I went home, I was like thinking of different ways that I could have responded to him because he shouted at me, and I was like, it's such a small thing. Why did I let that eat up hours and hours of my thought process?
Yeah.
And then I was like, I think a very, very hard thing is how do you forgive people? Because I do think that, we step on each other's toes a lot as human beings. We are not perfect, right? There are people who are going to let you down. There are people
Yeah.
who are going to wrong you. How do we forgive them? Because imagine if you had all that burden of anger and disappointment and sadness on you. You going about your day-to-day life with that would be so tiring.
Yeah.
And I think forgiveness is a very hard concept to grasp, because in the world, we are really all about like individuals, and it's like, it's very right or wrong. But when you look at life, right, I really don't think that it's very black or white. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
really used to be a very black or white person, but I really don't think that life can be black or white because, like you said earlier, it's your experience versus my experience, right? I mean, like if there are hard facts and truths, like if you steal something, okay, that then you have stolen something, like you know. But like if it's a conversation and you've had an argument, there's actually no right or wrong in that sense, lah. You know. So I think forgiveness is a very hard topic and a very hard lesson to implement because
Yeah.
there's comes together with like pride. It comes together with like I don't think you're worthy of my forgiveness. You know, it's a lot of that lah. So I think something that would be interesting to discuss is how do you even start? You know, I
Yeah.
don't think it's an immediate thing, but I think it's a process. And as I was preparing for our conversation today, I really feel that for us, right, as individuals, it is forgiveness is for us. It's not for the other person.
Yeah.
Because being
Agree.
able to forgive means you are able to step back and retrospect and look at whatever happened, accept that it happened, and then ask yourself, okay, what did it do for me? And how can I move on? Forgiveness is for us. Forgiveness is for us to understand the situation and let it go. You know, because if we don't forgive, the only person that's going to be hurt is us. Because
Yeah.
the other person might have already forgotten about it. There's nothing for them to forgive. They won't even know you're upset with them. Then you're just living with that burden in your heart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I think like I don't know if I ever shared with you this book that I read, by Corrie Ten Boom. So she's actually like I think one of the first like Dutch watchmakers. Yeah, and her story, right, is that she and her family, so they were Christians, and they actually housed a lot of Jews during the World War. Yeah, and so Corrie Ten Boom and her sister, and I think many of her family members, they all got caught lah, and then they were sent into the concentration camps. So like her concentration camp is like called Ravensbrück. Okay, obviously I'm not pronouncing it correctly. Yeah, but basically what happened, right, is that in a concentration camp, obviously for everyone, you know how the conditions are like, we've read about it, and they actually, the one that she was in is like a all women's concentration camp, and then like for the kind of things that they did in there to them, it was really very inhumane. Yeah, and also like there was a lot of abuse, and then they also had to starve. It was really really cold, and then they would actually not have enough clothes, all that kind of stuff lah. So at the end of the day, right, like what happened was that after many 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 years, they actually released her finally lah. Her sister actually died, yeah, but she lived, and she got released from the concentration camp, and it was a whole ordeal. You guys can actually check it out if you're interested. The book is called The Hiding Place. And actually what happened was after that, right, when she came out of the concentration camp, she went around the world preaching God's word of how good he has been in her life, and how he saved her from this and everything. And the funniest thing is that so she goes around the world preaching on forgiveness, right? And I mean, that's just one of the topics that she talks about frequently. And actually there was once, I think, if I'm not wrong, in Germany, she went into like one church, and she went and spoke about forgiveness. And then after the whole service, sometimes people will stay around to kind of chat with the special speaker for the day. So this old man, actually, he walked up to her at the front, right? And then when she saw him, right, she immediately froze. She looked at him, and she's like, oh my gosh, this is one of the guards in the concentration camp that I was in, and I don't know whether like he remembers me, but obviously she remembers him, lah, right? Is how can she ever forget, And this was the guard, right, that called them to strip naked in the baths and everything, and there was constant abuse, So when he came up to her, right, he said to her that, hey, like I actually was in that concentration camp that you were talking about in your sermon, and actually after the war I came to know Christ, and I know that my sins are forgiven, but I want to hear from you, like, do you forgive me? And then she's like, oh my goodness,
Wow.
how am I going to do this? Like, I have just
Uh,
spoken a whole sermon on forgiveness. Here it
yes,
is,
yeah,
like a
it is.
test, right? Where like
Wow.
the very guy that is one of the perpetrators, right? Comes up to me and asks for forgiveness. How can I do it? And actually, she was very honest in the encounter, and she said that like obviously not in the encounter but in the book, she said that she
Mm.
couldn't do it, she couldn't forgive the guy even after preaching and everything, right? It was so difficult, but she knew, right, that in God's word, right, forgiveness is not a feeling, it's a command. It's what the Lord commands us to
Mm.
do. So she say like, God, okay, I don't feel like forgiving this person, but I know that I have to do it, right? And I must do it.
Mm.
So you know what, like, God, I'm going to reach out my hand, because what he did was he actually reached out his hand. He said, do you forgive me? So he was waiting for
Wow.
her to reach out her hand. So she
Wow.
said, God, I can't do this, but you know what? I'm just going to take the first step. I'm going to reach out my hand. And then you need to
Mm.
supply me the feeling. She said that.
Mm.
You need to give me the feelings. So she just did
Mm.
that, like reach out the hand and then like, just handshake with him. And then after that, like she said, I kid you, okay, this is not her exact words, but she said, I kid you not, you know, from that time when I reached out my hand, right, there was like just this warmth and the current that came upon me. And then
Wow.
like I actually felt, this sense of like release, that, I can
Wow.
finally like, say I forgive this person. So like I think we can always talk about it logically, like what we need to do, forgiveness and all of that. But
Mm.
like very often we cannot rely on ourselves, right, to like say, okay, now I'm ready to forgive because this person has already made amends. I'm ready to forgive because he's already paid his dues. Sometimes
Mm.
a person may not even pay their dues. The person may not even be around. They may already have like passed away, and you can still
Mm.
not have forgiven someone who's dead. What
Mm.
are you going to do
Yeah.
then? Because that person is not living to say sorry to you. Then how? How are you going to forgive this person, right? That's why,
Yeah.
like what you said, forgiveness is for yourself. And like when we can't do it, like actually, we can ask God, and say like, I really can't do it, but Lord, like you need to help me to forgive this person. And actually, sometimes when in my own experience, right, I remember this one that was quite a while back, a long time ago, where I still lived with my parents, right, before I was married. So like there was once my mom messaged me when I was at work, and she said like, oh, Jillian, right, I was cleaning the toilet today, and then I know something's like up already, right? And
Uh-oh.
then
Yeah.
she said like, oh, then I was cleaning the shelves too quickly, and then actually I broke your bottle of like facial cleanser. And then at that
Mm.
time, what I was using was like some like atas brand, like very expensive kind of facial cleanser. So it was like $100+,
Mm.
and what possessed me to have it also, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, so it was an expensive bottle of facial cleanser, and when my
Yeah.
mom messaged me to say that like, like I actually there was an accident and I broke your cleanser, wow, I really
Mm.
got so upset,
Oh
and then
no.
all the like 1001 memories, right, of all the other things she's broken, or okay, like not 1001, okay, that's an exaggeration, but all the different
I
memories
get
of
it.
like
Yeah.
things that like was spoiled. Either maybe like there was another skirt. So there was another skirt that I had and I liked it very much, but I didn't
Mm.
tell her how to wash it, and then I just left it at the laundry basket. But so she was just being a good mom and washing everything. But in the end, it was pleated, and then all the pleats just like
Disappear.
opened up, and then it could never be salvaged
Oh
again.
no.
I went to the dry cleaners. I went everywhere. I said, "Can you
Cannot.
please help me?" Then say, "No, no, it's too much work. Like, we don't do this." So, but that was me in the past, like this kind of small things also could get me riled up. And like at that moment when she told me about the facial cleanser, like all these things come up and I'm like, yeah, see, yeah, she's careless again. Why did she do that? And then at that moment when I was dwelling on like the irritation and anger, right? Like I just felt the Holy Spirit, ask me this question. Do you value like your facial cleanser more, or do you value your mom more, like as a person? And then of course like
Mm.
I reply, obviously like my mom lah. Yeah, right. Then after that, like then the Holy Spirit asked me, yeah, like then why is it so hard to forgive her? You know? Then I say, actually I also don't know. Because like for her
Mm.
to actually like text me and tell me that she broke something, it's already a step, you know, to say like, oh no, like I better own up to my mistake. But if when she owns up to her mistake and yet I punish her for it and get upset, then what does that say about me as well, you know? And yet I don't appreciate her for all the other things that she does. I'm focused on the mistake that she
The
made.
mistake.
She could have just very well like hid it or like not say anything, wait for me to find out. But she took the initiative to tell that to me, and already that's coming out of that, you know, place where she's afraid of like what I would say, you know. So if I respond in a way that is unkind, right, then what am I? How do I value my relationship with her, right? So at that point, I realized like, wow, I needed to let it go. Yeah, and how can I value those things more than I value her lah? Yeah. So then from there I realized. So yeah. So that
Actually,
was just like one example.
what I was doing was I actually went to look up the definition of forgiveness. And as I'm reading it, I'm like, wow, okay. It's like the definition for forgiveness could be giving up my right to hurt you for hurting me. Do you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah,
like
yeah. It's not
you don't
payback.
want to, yes, it's not payback, it's not eye for an eye. You know what I mean? And then the word forgive means to wipe the slate clean, to pardon, to cancel a debt. So like when we wrong someone, we seek forgiveness in order for the relationship to be restored, right? And that forgiveness is not granted because someone deserves to be forgiven. It's an act of
Yeah.
love, mercy, and grace. And I'm just like, wow, it's so much more, right? Like now I'm looking at it and I'm like, actually, it's not about forgiveness. Actually, not about us also. It's about for the other person also. Is that we're giving them love, mercy, and grace. You
Yeah.
know, and it's like how we act towards that person may change. It's just that we're releasing them from the wrong that they committed against us,
Yeah.
and we forgive them because God forgave us, and we also want to be forgiven for anything we've done wrong, lah.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So wow, I just feel like that's so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like if we don't forgive people for that kind of wrongs, then by right we need to hold ourselves to that standard
The same
also.
standard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's just not possible. And there'll be one day that I will also break things and, you know, like do laundry wrongly. And when that happens, you know, like what am I expecting my mom to say to me, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm just
Yeah, it's a very heavy topic actually,
yeah, it's a
but
very
I
heavy
think
topic.
it's so needed lah. Yeah. So
How what would be the first step to forgiving someone? You know what I mean? I
I actually I actually would answer that quickly because like I think for me I realized that when I struggle with the forgiveness, right, the first thing I need to ask myself is why am I grateful for that person? What can I be grateful for that person, you know? And when I start to change or shift my thoughts, right, from all the, oh, he didn't do this, you know, he disappointed me again, then I would ask myself, like, what can you be grateful for? And then I start to find things, right, to be thankful, to find things that like are blessings instead of like being annoyed, you know, things that I can be annoyed with. And I realized that, whoa, like there's so much more to be grateful for. Like, actually, why am I hanging on to this negative situation? Yeah. And what I did was to have a wall at home and ask myself like daily, like, what am I grateful for? You know, and a lot of this is pertaining to Jeremy because he lives with me, right? So like a lot of times I write that so that I can remember, right, that like, you know, when there's mistakes made, right? Everybody makes the mistakes, but like at the same time, you need to intentionally focus away from the mistake, right? And look at all the other things that you can be grateful for. And then actually in comparison, the mistake may not actually even have any weight anymore. Yeah, but it does not mean that we don't address mistakes, right? But
yeah.
yeah,
It's
it's
the
just also
attitude. It's the attitude towards
exactly.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
You're like really taking your thoughts captive, because if you let that mistake dwell and you
yeah,
just feed yourself with the negativity, your mindset is always going to be like, oh man, like I got betrayed, like this person did this to me. But then what you're
yeah,
doing is that you're shifting your mindset to be more of like, okay, what's the good things that we've gone through, right? What has this person like what are some great experiences? Like why am I grateful for this person? And you're sort of like sort of shifting it to look at the good stuff instead of the bad stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that it doesn't come naturally, but it's really
Yeah.
something that you have to build it up,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that's a very, very good lesson because sorry, I'm doing the switch your on your brain every day with Dr. Lee.
That's
And then
awesome.
that's why I put this book because it's like she said, like your thoughts create your mood, right? So like in Proverbs 17:22, it says, a cheerful heart is a good medicine, but a downcast spirit dries up the bone. So it's like if you just let the mistakes and like someone who betrayed you or like someone who wronged you, if you let it feed you and it keeps going in your mind, then you're always gonna be like, oh my gosh, like you're gonna watch out for that person. You're gonna be like, this person let me down. Like it's just all the negativity
Absolutely.
that feeds, right? So I think the top thing is just building a habit every day on anything and just capturing that and just focusing on the good stuff,
Yeah.
which I think
Yeah.
is hard to do, but we can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, right? It's true. You know, when like somebody offends you, I mean, offense and forgiveness, like these are the two topics that always come together, right? So, like, when someone offends you, and sometimes like these people are not that close to you, so you don't have this space where you can like go and address it with them. I mean, you actually can, right? Most people sometimes don't, right? So like let's say someone offends you in a group setting and then they said something and it really like cut you lah. A lot of times like after that encounter, right, when you go back in the same particular group of friends or what, you may like actually always have that uneasiness around that person. You were trying to avoid that person, or like sometimes another person that offends you, like you see on the street, you might like actually change direction and walk another way because you don't want to like bump into that person, that kind of stuff, right? But
Yeah.
actually, if you think about it, if one person offends you like that, right, okay, maybe you won't meet that person on the street. But if you take that same attitude to in life and then actually
Everyone.
many people offend you, then you're gonna have to run away from many, many people every day there. And that's a lot of baggage, right? So like I realized that I think sometimes also what the Lord has been dealing with me also is sometimes for people in my past that like if I knew that I did something wrong to, or had something they did, made me feel uncomfortable, when I have the opportunities, I actually try my best to address it now. Yeah, so that like I can let go of like these baggages along the way. Yeah, and I think that as long as you desire for that and you desire to come to that place of reconciliation with people, then actually many opportunities will present itself. Yeah, and so like in particular, okay, I remember this scenario. So it's not so much based on forgiveness, but it's like someone that I had like a past with lah. And so this particular guy is like someone that I sort of went out with, and then at the same time, like I think we were both trying to find a church to go to, and then in the end, he also decided to come to the same church, and actually like 1 or 2 years down the road, like actually I would see him here and there in church, and then every time I see him, I feel awkward, right? Then like maybe I would just like walk away or whatsoever. But every time I saw him, I would feel this like feeling of like, why do you have to hide anything? Why do you have to like evade? So I never really did anything about it. Yeah, until like there was a time where I saw a friend's photo, and he was in it, and they were actually in the same cell group. And then I just thought it was funny to tell my friend and say like, hey, actually this person, I used to sort of like go out with this person. Yeah, and but I also don't know why he and I like never really chat after that, and then I never really, it was like there was no closure kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then after that, I decided to like actually just see if I still have his number lah, because I just wanted to let go of this baggage. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I mean, it's not a big thing, but it was just something that I felt that to do. And then I just saw that I still had his number, and then my friend was like, "Oh, this person no harm one lah. It's okay lah." And then I'm like, "Okay." Then I went to text him and I said like, "Hey, I'm so sorry. Like actually there were a couple of times that I saw you, but I didn't really say hi, and like just hope that you're doing okay during this season and all of that." Then we just like briefly caught up for a few sentences, and then like it was just it. Then I'm like, "Oh wow, so simple like can just like let the matter rest already. Then I don't have to like run away or like evade this person whenever I see him from now. You know what I mean?" So sometimes like this awkwardness or like for some people, this offense or that, it's like only in your head, you know. But and when you don't address it, you let things fester, right? And if, like I say, if it's one person, maybe not so bad. But if you have the attitude to relationships, then it's gonna like increase as long as your age increases and you're still in this world, right? So yeah.
I'm being super real right now, and this is actually what I will ask you if we were even talking in private, right?
Mm.
Like this whole situation, right, that you just shared really reminded me of something that has been on my heart and I find very hard to resolve. Um, like I got very badly bullied in secondary school, right? And like some of the people who bullied me are actually in our church. And it's been ages. Like I do think I've forgiven them. I'm like over it because I feel like that sort of made me who I am in that sense, you know, like the bullying, and it's really like something that crafted my identity, you know, and it was part of my story. But I have that awkwardness when I meet some of them. You know what I mean? It's like, how do you say hi to a person? Like, I'm past it, but it's like that person never really addressed it. You know, that person never really, like, we never really spoke about it. And that person never said sorry. You know, so like, it's me, right? It's in me. I'm like, I'm so awkward with you. I can't really say hi to you. I can't really start a relationship with you or a friendship with you, you know, like have a conversation with you because I don't know why it's just sitting on my heart. And my realistic question is, I'm sure we all face that situations. How do you deal with it? You know, like it's been eating at me because I do feel that I've forgiven the person. But why is there still this little rock inside me that makes me feel uncomfortable? How do I deal with that? You know? And
Then,
this is a very real
sorry,
question.
sorry.
I don't have yeah.
I guess then I will ask you like, actually, what is that rock in there like making you feel like? Is it like fear, uh, or like, yeah, what exactly is it? Because if you are saying that it's not unforgiveness, then like, what is it, right? And so while you're thinking on that, like some of my thoughts are, for example, like, you know, it depends on also like what you're expecting out of the encounter with that person. Because like if you are saying that, okay, like I want to be friends with this person again, it's completely different from like saying hi and, you know, just
Yeah.
having a casual chat with that person, right? So like if you're expecting to be friends, and then if let's say the fear comes from that, like what if I say hi and the person actually doesn't say hi back or that kind of thing, then it's already like not trusting. How do I say this? Like it's just about taking the first step, lor. You know what I mean? And
I
it's not
think
about expecting that like to be instant friends with that person or have a relationship in fact, right? Because even for people that we're close to, even after forgiveness, all of that, it takes time for actually reconciliation, right? So if let's say if it's a person that you haven't talked to for years, and you know in the first place if you guys were not friends, then like it would be a different story also, right?
yeah.
Once like
I'm
let's
not
say you start
expecting to be friends, I think. I think it's just very weird. Like we run in the same community and then like you know you want to like hi, you know, and then but there have been situations where like we make eye contact, smile, and then like don't say hi, you know, like I'm like what should have been the appropriate reaction, you know. And
mm,
I don't know what that rock is. Maybe I'm saying that I've forgiven the person but I haven't, but I really
mm,
don't think so, you know. Like I don't wish ill on the person, do you know what I mean? Like I
yeah,
don't want I
yeah,
yeah, but I think maybe it's because maybe it's my self righteousness in the sense that like I'm like, wow, you didn't say sorry to me, you know, then what
yeah,
what kind of a person are you? You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
just thinking
exactly,
thinking
yeah,
about it lah. You know,
right,
so
right,
if
right.
it's my self righteousness, then I think that's something I have to deal with and
Yeah,
get
yeah,
over. You know? Yeah.
yeah. Because then in that case, then it still goes back to the question of like, actually, what is, have I truly forgiven this person? Yeah. And it's so common, right? Because so often, like, I think even when Jeremy and I speak of people, right, sometimes at home, and I'll ask, like, you know, have you forgiven this person? And then he'll say yes. But then, he's like that, like, well, he still do this. Then I'm like, I don't think you've forgiven that person.
I have a question. Is a sorry necessary for you to forgive a person?
I
You know
don't
what I
think
mean?
so. Yeah, I actually don't
Yeah.
think so. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Because if a sorry is required for forgiveness, then it's about what the person is doing right.
Is-
Yeah. So if the person does not make right, are you saying that you will never forgive that person?
Yeah, wow. Yeah. That's
So
hard because then now it's totally on you. You really have to just be like,
exactly. Yeah.
let it go, have
Yeah.
mercy and grace. But that's so hard.
So it comes to our story, right? Like
Yeah.
when we didn't even say sorry to God for the things that we did, He already forgave us. So
Yeah.
why are we using a different way of forgiving others, right? Like why is our standard different? So I think like when we feel like we can't forgive someone, like maybe we have to ask ourselves the question, actually like, you know, how how good are we in the first place? Basically, because we are all fallen, right? We all have sinned. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
that like one thing that my one of my mentors actually told me before, right, is that like every time like you feel that self-righteousness bubble up, right, you can to help you with that is like when you think about from where you came from. Because like let's say maybe you think, oh yeah, now a lot of my issues are solved, I'm not as bad as I was in the future, in the past. But like when you remember that, well, even then when I was down in the gutter and stuff like that, right? Like God never said like you do this first, then I accept you, what? Right? He accepted us first, he forgave us. Yeah, not because of what we did. So it's like, can we show that to other people? Yeah.
Yeah. It's a never ending journey. You have to just
Yeah,
keep going.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So I think it's equally like that conviction and knowing what the word of God says, but also at the same time practical steps to things like speaker listener technique and all that help you in like real life conflict and arguments. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I think that was good. I just wanted to close by saying that like I think the two of us have had our disagreements and like we've mutually hurt each other, but I'm just so
Mm,
glad that we can get over it. And I
yeah.
think the basis of that is actually trust
Mm,
and knowing each
mm,
other and like knowing each other's like intentions
yeah.
and like character, and I think that foundation is so important
Yeah.
because like you said earlier, like if you don't have a relationship with this person, then how do you even build something up from there?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
We are
So
at
what?
52 minutes. Yeah. Okay.
Kate, you want to pray today?
Yes, can. Okay. I actually two people just joined us and was watching, but okay, join us for our prayer. Thank you, Father God, for this time, Lord God. Thank you for the fact that we're able to share our thoughts and our experiences so freely on this platform, Lord God. Father God, I just want to thank you for everyone who's tuned in today, Lord God. I pray that you will soften our hearts, Lord God. I pray that you will speak to us, Lord God. I pray that you will let us reflect on our internal selves, Lord God, our words, our actions, Lord God. I pray that, if there are any rocks in our hearts, Lord God, I pray that we will be able to remove them, Lord God, in terms of forgiving anyone who has hurt us, Lord God. I pray that you will give us eyes to see, ears to hear. You give us an open heart, Lord God, that we will be able to give anyone who has hurt us, love, mercy, and grace, Lord God. I pray that, for anyone that we individually have wronged as well, that they will forgive us as well, Lord God, and they will see us as a new person, and that, if there are any broken relationships today, Lord God, we speak that they will be rebuilt, rebuilt based on forgiveness and on love, Lord God. I pray that we will continue to choose love, that we'll continue to choose grace, Lord God. So again,
Mm.
thank you for this time, Lord God. We're just very, very grateful that we were able to share this message. And we bless you, Lord God. We pray for a peaceful, restful night. All this in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for watching. For the two people who are
Everyone for
watching now,
joining us.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
So see you again next week. And we don't know what topics we usually come up with, but if anybody is watching live or even later on, and if you have any suggestions, maybe you can let us
Please
know
let us
also.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're just free flowing it recently.
Thank
Okay.
you.
everyone. Good
Good
night.